SINGTEL, they've actually won the digital bank license, with that collaboration with Grab. So it's good news actually. And in addition to that, they've actually been the leader for 5G network. You've seen the advertisements before, correct? Because with SINGTEL, you can. I actually don't quite get the advertisement, but nonetheless, 5G is something that they've been awarded with, and it's probably a key driver, which I'll touch on in quite a while. So two key positives for SINGTEL, digital bank as well as 5G network. But why is the share price trending downwards? If you look at this chart over here, you'd see the 5 years. Previously it was about $4, but right now it's less than $2.50. So it looks like a bargain, correct? So today we'll really answer this question. Is SINGTEL a value trap? You see me post this question on the thumbnail. Naturally, I'll be trying to present to you both two sides, whether it's a value trap as well as what it can actually deliver if it manages to turn around its business. I'll give you a full breakdown. That's the first part of today's tutorial. Why has the share price fallen so badly? And subsequently, I'll also be sharing with you its shift towards 5G as well as digital assets. So if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. To understand why has share price looked so bad, let's revisit SINGTEL's story. SINGTEL obviously started off in Singapore, correct? For many years, it had a monopoly. Then government actually liberated it, and therein came in M1 and StarHub, some competition. Then after saturating Singapore, the next step was to move overseas to a developed country, and that's where Optus came about. So for many years, SINGTEL was relying on revenues from Singapore and Australia, from these two major markets. Then whatever surplus, the next part of it was to really scale overseas. In the telco business, it's all about infrastructure, it's all about being big, having size, having connections and stuff. That's why I started to invest overseas. Firstly, Globe, which is in Philippines. Then he went to AIS in Thailand. Then he also has stakes in Telkomsel in Indonesia. Then he also has stakes in Bharti Airtel in India. And just share with you, Bharti Airtel in India. This stake is right now possibly one of the most valuable parts of his business. And they've actually injected more money as of March of 2019. If you look at the share price chart for Bharti Airtel, you realize that that stake is very valuable. It's actually grown in terms of its valuations by quite a bit. So good for SINGTEL, that ownership, is reaping some value to it. And after moving overseas, the next part is to understand where has growth looked like over the last couple of years. And I have actually a 10-year chart for you to see. This actually summarizes the annual income for the last 10 years. And what do you realize? The dark blue bar, that is group consumer. That's where, we have business in handphone sets, handphones, etc. Mainly Singapore and Australia. This dark blue bar has been trending downwards, right, since 2013. The light blue bar, group enterprise, I'll touch on later part of the video. But mainly this dark blue bar has been declining and dragging down overall annual income for the whole group. So as we know, telcos actually make money from roaming, which is when we travel overseas, we pay a premium just for overseas network. With COVID-19, roaming services kind of got destroyed largely. Then not only that, locally, we still have so much competition, at least in Singapore. That's why there's Circles Live, that's why there's My Republic, etc. So that story, I'm sure you're aware of it. And that's why SINGTEL has actually had its worst full year profit since 1998. And that actually forced management to go through a strategic review, which I'll also touch on in a quick while. So when fire is burning, really start to wake up and do something drastic. I think this is actually a very good point brought up by this prof. And he's actually mentioned that this strategy of locking customers into a contract and growing the average revenue over time just created a disincentive rather for all these telcos, SINGTEL, StarHub, M1 to really innovate. And that's why when competition started coming again, then that's where the shake-up and loss of customers really came about. And if I show you a further chart, you kind of understand where our concerns coming. This is a good summary. Net income chart. What do you realize? Net income has actually dropped severely, right, since 2018. And just now's chart was on total income. So net income really factors in margins, which means margins are really shrinking, really under compression. Most important part is also this yellow bar over here. Year-on-year growth of net income has been negative for 2019, 2020 and 2021. Even though balance sheet is still solid, this is actually a very bad sign for investors, and analysts are not too optimistic of it. That's why this shift in strategy, which is the next part of this section, I actually touch on if SINGTEL is looking so bleak, it could really look like a value trap. But I've actually discovered some positive points, which is on the next section of today's tutorial. Now, if you've benefited so far, smash the like button because it's taken our team hours to create this presentation, and I'm filming this late at night, so it's taking me some hours also at night. So if I didn't already press on the like button, it will help us reach a bigger audience together. Now, let me share with you what I've discovered from Mr. Yuan, who is CEO right now, and what he's mentioned. He's mentioned that they are looking at 5G. He's also mentioned they're looking at next generation digital infrastructure. And this is key. You need to understand what the CEO is trying to do, and that would help you project where they're actually committing resources towards. He's also mentioned very favorably on NCS, which is actually a subsidiary of it. NCS, as we know, has won a lot of government projects, public sector in Singapore. And CEO has actually mentioned that these few things are key to its recovery and growth in the future. So I actually like to pull up something that I've also read in the transcript with analysts. They've brought up NCS quite a bit, and NCS, they've been in China for 20 years, but for the last 12 months, they've really become profitable, and I think that is something that we should pay closer attention to. So also mentioned by NCS's CEO that they provide unique services, end-to-end, a range of infrastructure, engineering, cyber, cloud, digital. And I've also friends in NCS. So from the surface of things, I didn't realize that they are doing so many things overseas. I thought they really were relying a lot on government projects in Singapore. So back to 5G, would it be a saving grace for Singtel's overall profitability? Right now, Singtel, they have won one license, StarHub and M1 has won the other license. But what analysts has mentioned also is that this few years of prices coming down, price war, may be ending, because with this monopoly again by Singtel and StarHub plus M1, you realize that they have a chance now to control prices again. And that could really help its business recover margins, at least on the consumer side of things. So when they categorize the presentation like that, Consumer Singapore, Consumer Australia and Group Enterprise, it tells you these are the key segments to focus on. And that's why I've actually prepared this subsequent slide to show you on the market share of Singapore and Australia. Realize that Singapore, they have about 50% market share, correct? And that's been still pretty strong, although margins are smaller. Australia still also very steady at around 32%. So dominating in those two market spaces is really how to drive profits and how to use 5G to really acquire customers that they have lost again. If then, let's move on to Group Enterprise, which is also very interesting. Just now I showed you this chart. The Group Consumer is actually declining, but the light blue bar has been very steady, correct, over the last 10 years, and that is actually Group Enterprise. So what exactly is Group Enterprise? Group Enterprise provides comprehensive and integrated ICT solutions to enterprise customers in Singapore, Australia, US, Europe, and the region. If I'm not wrong, the whole umbrella of ICT is actually NCS. They do have also some sub-segments of business, managed services, which if I'm not wrong, is actually mainly equipment and stuff. And they have also a lot of services like cybersecurity, business application services, whereby they build apps for the customers. So ICT, which is largely NCS if I'm not wrong, has actually grown despite the pandemic. The main part that's contracted is actually the carriage services. So this is actually mobile services to enterprises, data and net services to enterprises and stuff. This has actually contracted. But all in all, we should monitor the ICT growth, because if not wrong, this would be a key segment for its revival. So what are your thoughts of Singtel so far? Leave them in the comment sections below. I'll be keen to hear from you. I've actually an ending point to show you also, and this is actually a very important slide mentioned in the presentation, which is this over here. What do you realize? They mentioned something about bridging the valuation gap, correct? Singtel owns a lot of associates. They mentioned over there on the left hand side, 38.2 billion is actually worth of those associates, including Bharti Airtel. But they believe that there's actually a lot of potential market value that has not been priced in, and they believe it's $2.93, a sum of parts valuations that they publicly mentioned already. And they intend to actually sell assets to really unlock values of it. If indeed it comes true, you could see Singtel's share price rebound slightly towards this targeted price. And that's where I'll be actually expanding a bit more in the private members channel. So look for a join button below. I'll actually be expanding more on this Singtel topic, whether it's a good valuation or not. So I'll actually be using my value momentum matrix to really measure Singtel, whether it's a good buy right now or not. So look for that members channel. Singtel. We do know now that they are focusing more on corporates. And if you haven't realized already, they actually have a lead when it comes to the nationwide broadband networks for corporations. they're actually leading this second player, which is none other than Netlink Business Trust. This company has actually been asked quite a few times on this committee. I've actually paid attention to it. I've actually created content, getting it ready, so it'll be coming up pretty soon, probably next week. So if you're keen for Netlink Business Trust, press on subscribe and stay tuned for things. With that, I'll sign off. Take care and goodbye.